Hi. Woo! We're here. It's me, Bradley G, aka Magic Brad, and Casey Peak in the luxurious Authentic Reflection Studios in No Hope, Minnesota.
That's right.
Don't
Your
say No
Authentic
Hope.
Reflections.
New Hope. Yes, you're authentic. If you want to be authentically reflected, you can come over here and have that done.
That's right. Yeah.
I was talking with Elizabeth, and I said, that's really a cool name because it gets right to the authentic person.
Mm-hmm.
And it isn't just about photography. It's about how you're seen from outside the world.
Yes.
Your reflection, like a mirror.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's really her goal, is to capture people as they truly are, not necessarily as this like glorious, glamorous version of yourself that is totally unattainable and will not actually exist in any form or way.
So we got a couple different topics we're going to talk about. From last week, I thought, hey, we should do an event. And I keep on going back to that default of being in the event business. And I don't think I'm ready to do an event unless I've got a team and a focused audience.
Mm-hmm.
Because just trying to find people, it's like crazy. It's hard.
Sure.
It's hard these days.
Would any of you be interested in a live event with us where you come and you hang out and we chit chat, and I would talk about microdosing more in depth, and Brad would talk about what he does more in depth, and we would kind of have a focused event where we really do a deep dive on that stuff.
That's kind of where we want to do this, is get the input from you, the people, what you're interested in. And then we can talk about it and do some, we'll call it business social type stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying not to use the word networking because I don't like networking. That's probably my own hang up. And then if you're not from around here, if you're not from the Twin Cities of Minneapolis and St. Paul, maybe there's a way we can work something out where you can participate in the live element of it and help promote it. And if we end up putting a monetary thing on it, they'd be able to earn commissions from it. I can probably set that up with a tracking link and stuff. So if you want to earn some money from helping us promote an event, that's a possibility.
Yeah.
Who knows? Maybe we got a bunch of people from North Carolina and Los Angeles and Las Vegas and Chicago, and they'll all help us promote an event here in Minneapolis, and we can make $1 million and share.
Right. Who knows?
If you can help us make $1 million, we'll split it with you.
There you go.
In a minute. So some of the topics that I was talking about, it was kind of fun this weekend. My wife had her little granddaughter over, and we went to an event in Burnsville. It was like an international festival, so it had all sorts of different countries with different foods and all that kind of stuff. And while we were down there, we stopped at the magic store.
Sure.
So, of course, the guy that runs a magic store wanted to show us a couple of magic tricks and then have me buy a little magic trick for her. And we ended up doing that. And when she learned that we're going to the magic store, her eyes just lit up. She was really excited about it. And he did about 4 different tricks, effects. And we settled on one, and she practiced it. And she's only like 7 or 10 or something like that. But she's really good at creating stories around the magic effect. And that's how the magic stuff happens.
Sure.
It's the story that you put inside someone's head. And she's really good at it. She picked up on it kind of fast. But it's kind of interesting. With magic, you can kind of do the magic trick if the props work. You can just work the prop. It's kind of like, how do you use a pliers? You know, you go to the store, you buy a pliers, and you can use it.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas in some of the other arts, like dance or gymnastics or martial arts, you know, if you're in gymnastics, you can't just read how to do a full twist and do a backflip full twist. Okay, and then just go do it. I tried to explain that to her, that you need to work this magic stuff. You can't just all of a sudden just do it just because it does it, because you got to get your storyline in conjunction with the effect. Anyways, that's one of the things that I did this weekend.
Nice.
Yes, it was kind of fun. And then she got excited. She wanted us to do a little magic show. So we did a little magic show in the basement for her mom and dad.
Nice.
That was kind of fun. And what'd you do over the weekend?
I saw friends. I did a job. So yeah, I
It's
worked.
working on the
Worked a little.
weekends.
Yep.
Well, I had some other stuff that was going on in my head because it's been a while since I've integrated from my Costa Rica psychedelic experience,
Yeah.
and I'm still trying to hang on to all that kind of stuff, but I can feel it like fading or
Yeah. Yeah. That's why journaling's important. That way,
journaling. I don't like
yeah.
journaling. I hate journaling.
I don't like journaling either. I'm not very good at it, but I am an avid proponent of it, and here's why. Because whenever you journal what's happening and you have integration happening and you start to journal it, even if the thought fades, right, the emotion will still be there, and then you have your journal. As the emotion finally begins to fade, because over time it does, it just kind of fades into the background.
Yeah.
As that begins to fade, you can go back and you can read what you put in your journal, and usually that can help you sit back in that heart
Oh,
space.
that'll reconnect, refire the emotion, maybe.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, because there's a lot that happens in there that's not necessarily something that's gonna work up here. It'll work in here, maybe.
I get it because like there was it was like a rap song, a psychedelic rap song.
Uh
It was like an ayahuasca rap song, and they played it in the ceremonies.
huh. Uh huh.
And then after the ceremonies, we were listening to it in the van that was taking us to the airport, and we were all getting into it and everything.
Hmm.
So the music that can get emotional for you. We were
Yeah.
jamming to it and being in that moment again. In
Yeah.
fact, I hear some music that is probably more like, what would you call it? Hispanic or Latino or
Most ayahuasca music is South
South
American.
American type.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
So
you
I
end
mean,
up hearing
obviously,
that.
there's like many different languages in South America, but typically it comes from that kind of Peruvian or like Brazilian area. Most of the music.
Well, I didn't journal all my stuff. I don't like journaling. I don't like
Yeah.
reading. I don't know what it is.
Well,
So,
I mean, I understand why you wouldn't necessarily like journaling. It's not like it's the easiest thing in the world, but the whole point of doing it is really so that way you have something to fall back on. So as it begins to fade here and here, you can read it and it'll remind you of the lessons that you were learning in it.
well, I
Because
could.
sometimes you have information that comes up that really doesn't make sense from the outside. And sometimes it doesn't even make sense from the inside after you're through it, right?
Mhm.
You might have felt a certain way or had a certain experience, but you don't actually remember anything about what was in that experience. You're just left with the emotion. So when you describe it and you say it meant this to me, and I feel like the ayahuasca was telling me I need to be more open with people, maybe. Let's just say it's that, right? Then you write that down and you say, yeah, I was feeling something here and kind of felt like this, or you like write down something like that. It's going to bring it back.
Mhm.
So when you go back and you read it, and at the very least you're going to have a little note there that says, yeah, it was saying I really need to do more of this. And then you can look at it and say, am I accomplishing that? Am I actually doing that?
Well, I do have that little book, and we had situations where we're after a class or a workshop, then we're supposed to
Mhm.
journal, and I did do some of that. So I could probably rip that book open and take a peek, see at it. When you just got done saying something, did you mean to say when you describe it? Did you mean to say like scribe? You describe?
Describe, yeah.
That's not like a scribe is someone that writes stuff, right?
Yeah.
And you write down a description.
Description.
Are you describing the journaling by,
Unscribing it.
yeah, maybe, or unpacking it? I don't know, but when you said that, that's what popped into my head at that
Oh,
moment.
that's
You
interesting.
said describe, and you kind of did this with your hand. You describe it. But
Yeah.
I think you just said describe, but in my head, I heard you say describe,
Yeah,
like decode.
that's funny.
It is.
Yeah. I've
It's,
never thought of describe that way. It's describe, scribe as in right. Yeah,
I'm assuming that's where description comes from.
probably.
It's describing something. root
Kindly.
words and all that stuff. He's yawning. I must be boring.
Sorry.
That's okay. I am pretty boring.
No, I'm just yawning today for some reason.
When I first came here, I was telling you this. I just have been having weird feelings about like with all this stuff what happened with Trump and then Biden and the political crap and I watch a lot of these videos and people describing all this stuff, and then everybody starts blaming all these things and the conspiracy theories on both sides, and the people that get not investigated, but they get them in a room and they start grilling them, and then they ask a question and it's just a simple no, yes or no question, and all of a sudden they get into explaining it and say, I'll have to get back to you on that. There's all this avoidance with all these things, these people hiding. It just kind of blows my mind that all that stuff is happening. And then it also blows my mind that to me, and it's probably because the way I've been programmed watching certain things, it makes crystal clear sense to what the person is saying. And the other person is like on the other side of it. And I try and stay in the middle of all this stuff. And then I end up agreeing on the other side. It's kind of like you look at a quarter and you look at the heads and you look at the tails. It's still a quarter.
Still a quarter.
Doesn't matter what you're looking at, but it's a different point of view on it. So that's what's been going on with my head, and it feels like I need to go back to Costa Rica and do another ceremony.
I think having to deal with politics in this country makes everybody have to go back to Costa Rica and do ayahuasca. I think if we all did ayahuasca instead of voting, we'd have a much better world.
Well, there's a lot to be said for that.
We should all, on voting day, instead of going to go vote, we should all just do ayahuasca and sit outside of the voting places and be like, come join us.
Yeah, there is part of that. Because it gets so political, this stuff. And people get so wrapped up in their opinion of the stuff.
I think most of it is maddening right now.
Yeah,
I don't think there's any of it that it makes anyone feel hopeful. I think that's the way to put it.
That's a good way to put it. And here we are in New Hope.
Yeah.
Because that's part of where I'm going at with some of the business stuff that I've wanted to do. I mean, I get up and I have an idea when I wake up and I start to implement it. And I get to this place of going, why am I doing this? It's the why thing. Why am I taking the time to put together a graphic or something or do an email or why?
I think a lot of us, we regularly ask ourselves why about all kinds of things. The funny thing is whenever it comes to politics, people are so busy trying to dissect issues that actually have nothing to do with the presidential seat half the time. And, we stop asking why for a minute. Why? Why do we stop asking why?
Yeah.
That's the most important time to ask why. But, I hate politics. I've been involved in politics at various different points in my life because I find that it's necessary for grown adults to become involved in some form or way so that way we can try to affect change. But I don't think we manage it most of the time.
It isn't even so much the politics part of it. And, politics, I guess, is governmental. Would you agree with that? That politics is the government kind of?
Kind of. I mean,
government?
I would. I think the politics are really the psyop, and that the government is the machine behind it all. That's the way I look at it. It's like reading your fortune, right?
See, when I look
at politics are like pulling open your fortune cookie and reading the fortune, but there's a machine that makes all the fortunes for you.
Yeah. Well, for me, political, it's a pole. It's opposite poles. Does that make any sense?
I think I hear where you're coming from, but we're one of the few countries that truly has a two-party system. And we don't really have a two-party system. I mean, that's the big lie, is that we have a two-party system. We actually don't have a two-party system. However, most people do think of it as a two-party system.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
yeah,
And
it's
you're
annoying.
right. There is a big machine that's making the fortune cookies.
There is. There's a giant machine that's making the fortune cookies. And whether you vote for the fortune cookie on the right or the fortune cookie on the left, the machine still made the fortune cookie.
Right.
And it's the same machine, most likely.
Well, that's when I first got here. That's what I was talking about. Are we living in this this matrix thing? Is this artificial intelligence thing? If we're in it, how do you know if you're in it?
Uh, From a different point of view than we were talking earlier, because I was talking about, like, I really don't think that we are, because as a self-reflecting, intelligent being, right? I think that we can ask ourselves all kinds of things that are far more complex than AI really can, because we can imagine and think and drive and go through these things that AI is just not capable of. I know people say yet. I'm not sure AI is ever going to be capable of it unless they start using organic matter for creating it, which they are. They're creating. They're creating lab grown neurons, and they're trying to make processors out of lab grown neurons. So it's basically like an artificial brain,
Yeah.
which is kind of weird.
Well,
But
that's some other stuff that we were talking about
yeah.
before we went live too. Is the whacked out tinfoil hat concept of maybe aliens have implanted thoughts in my head.
Oh, I don't think aliens would be implanting the thoughts. I think aliens
Space
might.
aliens.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think humans would implant thoughts in your head. I don't think aliens that are sufficiently intelligent enough to be able to travel across multiple systems within the same individual's lifetime would be interested in manipulating, our little monkey thoughts. Like,
Well, now flip it around and pretend like you're playing a video game and you got the joystick and you're manipulating the little monkey thoughts of Donkey Kong.
I mean, it'd be like playing a video game, but
That's what
I
I'm
mean,
saying.
I don't think it'd be like manipulating a human wouldn't be like playing a video game. It'd be much more boring than that.
Oh, I don't know. You never know, isn't it? Wouldn't that be weird if there's somebody that, and these aliens aren't necessarily on. Now we should be talking more about the psychedelics and
Humans have technology to put thoughts in your head, though.
they do. That's the psyop
Yeah.
thing.
No, no, no. This is McDonald's. McDonald's actually has patented a technology. They have it patented. You can look this up. They patented the technology that allows them to send commercials over cellular and other airwaves that will go into people's heads and make them dream about McDonald's. So we're even going to start having commercials in our dreams. I'm sorry, but at the point where that happens, I say we just tear it all down, because, like, that is ridiculous. I'm already getting inundated with commercials all the time. I get inundated with commercials on my phone. I get inundated with commercials on TV. I get inundated commercials whenever I'm driving down the road. I get commercials from billboards. I get commercials from, heck, some people get commercials on their flipping car consoles. I mean, we have way too many commercials at this point. I am just absolutely sick of being inundated with, please buy this, buy this, buy this, buy this. It's loud, it's noisy. That's
Well,
why everybody needs ayahuasca.
well,
It's
they're,
loud, it's noisy.
well, they're doing it differently now from a marketing perspective. Is the idea is to make it not look like a commercial.
Yeah.
If you see something on Facebook or whatever, it usually says sponsored on it. And that's probably through regulations and stuff like that. But what if you're not advertising? What if you're just posting something on social media and somebody happens to see it, like we're
Yeah.
doing right now? I want you to become a member of the Synergy Collaborative, and maybe you want to work with Casey and MicroShift
Yeah.
as a commercial.
That'd be awesome.
So yeah, we're still doing that, but it is being done on a different level. And I don't know if we did any subliminals or anything in there, did we?
Are we doing it right now? Flashing pictures on my screen, shown too quickly to be
Or
seen.
just subtle product placement and stuff. Is there anything back there? You never know. It's
I don't actually have product placement. I should correct that. My product placement got moved. I did at one point have a little clever product placement back here for your authentic reflections.
well, the nice thing about doing it the way we're doing it, if someone's seriously interested in something that I do or something that Casey does, you know how to find us. You just got to do some poking around and research.
Right.
And that way the person is genuinely interested in what's going on.
Right.
'Cause they
Absolutely.
pursued it rather than someone shoving it down their throat. Because that type of marketing doesn't work anymore. You know, buy my stuff, buy my stuff. I was
No.
talking about that before. I got a message on LinkedIn from some guy that wanted to connect with me, and then right away he starts pitching his thing. I don't want it. Not interested. Turn me off.
Yeah.
So, what are you looking at?
Oh, I was just hearing I have, for those of you who can't see what I'm looking at over here, oh, you can actually. I can tell it's right in the gap right over your shoulder. You can see my little mop bot running back there, and it keeps running into things. And just a few minutes ago, it got stuck, and it kept going thunk, 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 doo-doo, and then a little red light went off.
It's his little auto maid.
It is, yeah. And we have this studio is set up to be very hands off as far as the maintenance of it goes. So I have a little Roomba and a little, what do they call the mop version of it? Whatever it's called.
Mop
iMop, whatever it is. And
mop bot.
yeah, there you go. Yeah, they basically run around this perfectly all white studio and clean it 3 times a week.
That in of itself is fascinating, and they even have the electric lawnmowers that will do that too. They can
Yeah.
be programmed to mow your lawn.
You know, next year they're slated to come out with the very first robots that actually like look like humans and can actually manipulate
I've
things.
seen some of that.
Tesla is launching them, and guess how much they're going to cost?
$40,000,
You're not far off.
$50,000.
Yeah, it's right around there. $40,000 to $50,000 is what they're guessing. Yeah, you're not far off.
That was a thing that you must have saw the same thing, or saw something, and I saw it too, because that's what came up, and it was talking about how men are getting sick and tired of working with women because they got these feminist issues, and they decide they're just going to buy a robot, have a friend.
Well, that's not what I'm thinking of. What I'm thinking of is the Jetsons. If any of you have seen the Jetsons before, I'm thinking of getting me a Rosie. That's what I want. I want a Rosie. I need a Rosie to clean my house and cook and come here and clean up my studio whenever I want to get it done too. And they can do all the little tiny maintenance things. That would be fun. I would thoroughly enjoy that.
Rosie, till she turned on you.
Rosie never turned on the Jetsons.
Not on the Jetsons.
Rosie was the Jetsons' friends.
Yeah, well, we're farther along now.
I have no idea if any of the AI stuff is ever going to come true where like they become dangerous or not. Personally, I think that AI is very dangerous. Oh yeah, I was having a conversation with the guy the other day. He was talking about on the military side of it. This is kind of spooky. So because the artificial intelligence systems can't be hooked up to the internet in order to be hooked up to, say, Army intelligence computers, they're actually looking at creating their own in-house artificial intelligence, but they have to wipe it clean, meaning it has no memory of like any of the other type of stuff that's out there on the internet. But think about it. If you take a small child and you throw them in the military and all they ever know is the military, they're going to be some dangerous MFers.
Hmm?
And they're probably going to kill first, ask questions later. And they're probably going to be, you know, extremely not so good people whenever they grow up. The AI, yeah, if we're going to get killed and slaughtered by an AI, and if there is really going to be a Skynet, it's going to be a military AI because they have to disconnect it from the internet, wipe its memory clean. So, in other words, make it a small child again, and then birth it only on the military system.
Well, I think it could also happen in the civilian system if it starts learning from the bullshit that's out there
Mm-hmm.
and starts doing that stuff. If AI started teaching AI how to do things. I just saw a video of a guy and they were implementing AI. Someone asked Chat GPT to create a sermon for the Christian church based on some other stuff, like
Yeah.
the mark of the beast and the revelations and all that creepy stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what it did. It wrote out a perfect little sermon for someone to use.
Nice.
Not so nice.
It
And
wasn't
then
nice.
not with some of the stuff that ends up happening. Because all it takes is one little pivot from a belief of something, and you start doing the wrong thing. Because it starts learning from itself.
It does. It starts learning from itself. But with that being said, I don't think that the AI system is deep enough at this point to be able to take religion and then run with it, because you would have to have an abstract concept of things that are not really feasible in the world as we understand it.
But humans are doing it already. They'll take something from a biblical text.
But that's because we're human.
So you think that AI can't screw up that too?
I don't think AI is intelligent enough to have that kind of an abstract
Well,
thought
it's
yet.
not about being intelligent, it's about following orders.
But that's what I'm saying. I don't think AI is capable yet of having its own abstract thoughts.
Well, let me give you an example. I'll try and do this verbally, but I remember there's a phrase, and the phrase without punctuation says, a man without, or a woman without her man is nothing.
Hmm.
Without the punctuation, it says, a woman without her man is nothing.
Hmm.
So that sounds like a woman that doesn't have a man is nothing. But if you change the punctuation, it ends up saying a woman, comma, without her, comma, man is nothing. So the
Yeah.
same phrase flips the whole meaning of the sentence with different punctuation.
Yes.
So that could happen with AI if it was reading something on a graphic and that little tail that comes off a comma
Hmm.
had some like what white dust on it, so it looked like a period, or vice versa.
Yeah.
That could change the whole perception of something.
Sure.
So that's why I'm saying that AI could screw that up somehow.
Well, AI can screw all kinds of things up, but I mean, because AI is only as good as it gets programmed.
Well, unless there's a mistake that's made, and AI can make a mistake too. It can,
Sure.
like, haven't you seen some of the words that when we do this video and we put it into Opus clips,
Hmm.
and it hears a word that we said and then it spells it on the screen, but it's not the same word that we said. So it's
I
making
have seen that.
mistakes right now.
Hmm.
Like microshift, you saw it as microshift.
Yeah.
It's not microshift. It's MYCO
Yeah. Like
shift.
mycology.
Yeah. So there was a mistake that AI did. I didn't do it.
Yeah.
I just said microshift and it read it as microshift.
Sure.
Now you're really confused, aren't you, AI?
Yeah.
So that's part of my concern with it, because you see these people, like I know some of these people that go back to political stuff, is they're making these funny little videos of Trump doing this with an orange suit on. He's probably
Sure.
never wore an orange convict suit,
Probably not.
but there's stuff out there that shows him wearing an orange convict suit.
Yeah.
How does that happen? If he's never ever done it in reality, somebody created it
Right.
using AI.
That wouldn't be hard to do even without AI. It'd be easier with AI though.
Well, yeah. There's another thing that AI does. I just did it myself. Is I took a still picture and I put it into this software, and then I typed in a sentence, and it created a video of me saying the sentence. But I've never ever said that sentence. I just typed it. And now you got a video of me mouthing the sentence. That's not true. But AI did it.
Yep.
That's the part that's got me a little creeped out. When this stuff gets to another side, if you want to go back into the military thing, I've always had concerns about them integrating that with video games. And now you put some drones over in Columbia Heights, Minnesota, and some little kid's with his joystick. He's shooting people on the sidewalk.
And he has no idea.
No, he's playing the game. And Dad, look, I won.
Yep.
And there's a bunch of blood all over the sidewalks. That's possible.
Yeah. It's totally possible. Yeah. Hooking up predator drones and stuff like that directly to what people fly. Yeah. Inside a game. Oh yeah. There's actually a game that's out there from the Drone Racing League, because they have a racing league for drones.
I know, I've seen those guys zipping through these little teeny little holes.
Yep, and they have a game that they put out there. It's the official game that's put out by the Drone Racing League that's supposed to teach you how to fly drones. And they tell you just get a little joystick and you just do it. And then once you get good at it, then you can get a real drone. But they actually, you can get sponsorship and all kinds of stuff through this program. So what if they did that with something that was a little more hostile?
It doesn't take much to make it hostile these days.
Right.
So
yeah.
That's just a thought that I have sometimes. I don't know if I got a twisted brain or whatever, but it just seems like it's so easy for something like that to happen. And now I'm going to be accused of inciting violence or something because I explained it.
I don't know. We definitely did that. I'm going to turn on the light real quick. It's getting dark in here because we have a lot of clouds. So give me 1 sec.
Yeah, we're going to have a storm. We're going to have a storm here in New Hope, Minnesota. So Casey's going to enlighten. Oh, is that better? There you go. That is better, isn't it?
That is better.
See, you know, if we had AI, we could have just pushed it on your phone and it would have turned on the lights for you.
Right. Well, I don't have my phone hooked up to anything that's like that. Yep.
Yet.
Hey, look at that. We have a thumbs up and a heart.
Wonder what we said. It gave us.
I don't know. Because the counter says 0, so I'm not sure anybody's actually actively watching us. I think people are just liking it.
Well, people do that. We can talk a little bit about that if you want. That's got me irritated.
Well, where people just like things and they don't participate. I gotta say, I am struggling with getting more participation. I would love to get more participation. There are a lot more topics I could cover that I would love to cover that I don't cover because it needs somebody to play off of. Right. So, like, I would even be willing to talk to somebody about microdosing and about how that all works and do a free consultation for somebody if they wanted to come on and like have like a full chat and just kind of air their business a little bit.
So is that at 0 now? There's nobody watching us right now?
Nobody's watching us right now, it seems.
Here's what's interesting to me, that we're doing this on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube.
Yep.
And today on Facebook, I've got multiple groups. I've got some that have a few hundred people in, some have maybe 500 people in, some that have 20 or so people in, but I got probably 7 or 10 different groups. Some of them have more than that. Some have thousands of people in. Because I put them in also like Minnesota entrepreneurs. I dropped that link in there. Now, either the admin kicked my stuff out of there because I probably shouldn't have put it on his domain, but I was in a don't give a shit mood. But I've got my own platforms on there. I didn't not let you see this stuff. I've got a page that's got like 3,000, what you call them, likes on it. So there's all this Facebook traffic that isn't seeing this stuff. But we did get somebody that gave us a thumbs up and a.
Oh, we have a viewer now. Yeah.
Is there anybody there now? Can you see?
Oh, now they're gone. It's the eye, so it's right next to where you see the red strip that says live in the top left.
I can't see it.
Right next to that, there's like a little eye and a 0. I can barely see it from
But see,
here.
part of it is the way that Facebook is designed doesn't let us get very much traction because they want to get the money from the people that are paying. They give them the traction for the viewership. But
Hmm.
somebody that did come here, then there's the human factor where they're too lazy to stick around and listen to what we have to say, or else we're just too boring, so they don't care. Because they're just somebody just disappeared again.
I would guess the latter.
We're too
I'm not
boring.
positive though.
Well, we cover a lot of different topics.
We do cover a lot of different topics.
And then some people are paranoid, so they don't want to be seen. They just want to troll and lurk around. So they're
Right.
not going to make any comments or ask any questions
Sure.
because it's 5 o'clock. They're probably at a stop sign watching. They go, oh my God, I got to go.
Right.
So they're
It's
illegally
not like they need to
texting and
watch us.
driving.
They can put it on and listen too. Yeah.
And
Or
then
it's
some
probably
people
more interesting than watching us.
will watch it later, watch the replay because it sticks on
Possible.
for a few days or something. So the internet's got me upset.
Yeah.
Not really upset. I kind of don't care because after my Costa Rica ayahuasca experience, I'm not near as upset as I used to be. I'm
Sure.
kind of like, whatever. It is what it is.
So, speaking of integration and plant medicine and things like that,
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure my wife mentioned to you AFT, Aroma Freedom Technique.
Yeah, I think so. That's something new she's
Yeah,
told me.
yeah. So she did a little workshop on it here. She's gonna do a second workshop because it was so good. Like so many people liked it that went, and she found it to be extremely powerful. So for all of you out there who don't know me, um, I'm always on the lookout for improving integration, improving various different techniques and everything else to try and learn new things. And one of those new things that I was learning is AFT. My wife ran into it and she goes, Casey, you have to check this out. So essentially, what it is you use a certain blend of aromatherapy, put it in your hands, you have a certain thought, you think about it, and then you kind of like they guide you into like, okay, well, what's a goal? And then you come up with that goal, and then all right, so whenever you think about that, how much do you believe that statement? Because you have to make the statement as though it's already happening. And usually you're like, I'm wealthy and successful, and then people are like, how much do you believe that? 1 to 10. You're like 2. I barely believe it, or something like that, right? And then you take this aromatherapy stuff, and then you think about that. You think about that question, and you think about possibly what's holding you back, right? And then you go, and you have a couple of deep breaths, and that brings up emotions.
Sure.
And then you sit in that emotion. And Elizabeth said that she had an extremely powerful response to it. So she was telling me that it was basically like going through hypnotherapy. It was that powerful. And she said that she would like it if I were to start including that in my integration recommendations. So we are going to be, I believe it's on the 8th. There is a link, not linked. There's a link for it at yourauthenticreflections.com. If you go on there and you click on events, over there, it's going to show you on the 8th, I believe it's the 8th, they show the AFT, or Aroma Freedom Technique. And I would love for some more people to come try it out. I definitely want to get some more feedback. I want to see like how it's working for everybody, but you might be interested considering where you're at right now.
How do they know what blend to put together?
I don't know. The lady who is trained in this technique, and she's the one who does the technique, she will be there. So those kind of questions can be asked of her. I literally only know what I told you right now. That is it. That is everything I know about the Aroma Freedom Technique. My
That's your
wife knows a
disclaimer.
little bit more. Well, I mean, my wife is the one who said, "Hey, this is amazing. I really think you need to add this to your services." And so I contacted everybody who was clients in my list, and I said, "Hey, do any of you, all of my recent clients, that is," and I said, "Hey, would you want to come to this event. Here's a link to it. Hopefully I'll see you there. And it's only $20, and you come, and it has, snacks. You can have some snacks and everything else. Hey, look at that, storm's getting started.
Yeah, we're gonna have a storm. Maybe you'll see some excitement.
Yeah.
Oh, somebody did something. They disappeared.
Yeah, I saw it flick for a second there. Ooh.
What was that?
I don't know. That was pretty loud though.
It's the wind on your windows.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, there was a little pop there too, like something hit it. Yeah. Well,
so I believe in that stuff because the olfactory system is pretty powerful. The sense of smell.
yeah.
And it could be a situation like they're using like essential oils, right?
It's essential oils, and it works off of the premise, like you said, the olfactory system is very powerful. Do you know how the olfactory system works and why it's so powerful at recalling memories?
I think because it goes in here and goes right into your brain.
It goes directly to your brain. Yeah. So there's no interface. So like our nervous system gets filtered by thought. It goes through a thought process first and everything else. Our taste buds, that goes into our mouth, it goes through the signaling, and then it goes to our brain to interpret it, right? That is not the case with smells. Smells we take in, the smell goes, and it goes right, direct connection to our brain and our memories. It has direct access.
Right.
So, yeah.
So let's just speculate. I'm assuming that maybe with the essential oils, they pick certain oils that they think might be effective. You said they like have a conversation to find out what your intention is or what your affirmation might be.
Yeah, they ask you something like, pick a goal, something that is an attainable goal, or it could be a bit of a reach if you want to have something that's a reach. This is what my wife told me. So this is secondhand knowledge, not direct, so essentially then what ends up happening is that you state it as a fact, like it's currently true. Mm-hmm. So, much like you do in hypnotherapy. And then when you do that, they then come around and they put the oils in your hand and you rub them together, and then you put it over your face and you take a certain amount of deep breaths. So I think you're supposed to like breathe into it for like 30 seconds or something like that. But I don't know all the details. That's just what I understand. And then what happens from there is that you go through that like 2-3 times, where you go back and you do it every time and you try to dive deep into the emotions every single time. And by the end of it, she said, well, she started out as a 2 and, believing what she said as her goal statement. She said she ended as an 8 because she was actively working through the emotions that she was doing this.
So there might be some psychological blocks, maybe subconscious blocks that were having her give it a 2.
Right. Well, for her, there was this thing that came up of being a kid and being afraid of this dark corridor that was in her house, because there was this blinking red light at the end of the corridor, and she was a little girl and she had to get up to go pee, and she had to walk down this dark corridor with a little blinking red light at the end of it. And she's like, oh my God, it's a monster. It's going to get me.
Oh.
And so that feeling somehow ended up translated into several other permutations, and then caused some of the effectual block that she had.
So maybe it was just a smoke detector or something.
Probably it was an alarm or a smoke detector or something like that. I don't know.
But it told a story in her head.
Right. She told the story in her head, and then she had that same feeling again later, and then it picked up more power. And then she added that same feeling again later on, and it picked up more power. And they were in different circumstances, but they were the same feeling. So they were tracking that same feeling going all the way back.
So the AFT, the aroma freedom technique, is that sort of a spin-off of the EFT, the tapping stuff, the emotional freedom technique?
I don't know.
That's what I would think.
I mean, considering that the name is similar and stuff.
Yeah.
Possibly.
I can get how that could trigger something, because like if maybe in your childhood something happened when you were camping and you got burnt by the fire, and then you do this thing and you smell like wood burning,
Mm-hmm.
that would trigger something in that subconscious stuff of your brain. That's not really subconscious, is it? It's more cellular memory kind of thing, maybe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's more just like emotional memory being tapped by aroma. Like, well, here's a good story. Like, so after my father passed away, right? I wouldn't get rid of his shoes for a while because they smelled like him.
Got it.
And so I would actually go over to the shoes and I would pick them up, and as weird as it sounds, and I'd go, because this smelled like my dad.
Right.
And I just missed him. And I did that for 6 months before I finally threw him away.
Hmm.
And like finally at the end of it, I was like, this is just weird. I'm just gonna throw him away now.
But that same
But
smell, if that was to come up somehow,
it would make me think
it
of my
might, yeah,
dad, and it would bring up a lot of emotions.
right.
And I don't know what emotions it would bring up, but it would bring up some
That's what I
kind
was
of
kind of
emotions.
wondering. I mean, it'd be
Yeah,
interesting to see what she has to say with how she chooses the oil
yeah.
when matching it up with like the whole frankincense and myrrh thing.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if she comes up with the aroma based off of what you want at any individual like moment, like if it's like individualized for each person, or if there is a specific aroma that they use that is meant to overwhelm the senses and to kind of put you into a state where you can be more um maybe have a hallucinatory aroma that's there,
Maybe.
because
Like,
that can happen if you get your sense of smell overwhelmed. You can't actually smell, and then you can imagine what you're smelling.
well, there's certain scents like lavender is supposed to be more calming.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So
I
there's,
believe in aromatherapy. It totally works.
I believe in,
I've used it in many circumstances where it's been extremely effectual. I've even used it to help my kids uh, get rid of their percussive coughs.
I
So,
believe in that stuff too. Where I start losing my faith in it is when something gets really, really complicated,
hmm,
like astrology. Someone that really knows what it means to be a Gemini. I don't even know what my rising sign is or whether it's a sun or a moon. I don't even know what it means.
I should look up your astrology
So
sometime.
someone that knows all that stuff, somehow they know something about Alpha Centauri and moon thing.
Alpha Centauri is not inside the chart, but you know there are other things that are inside charts, like Vesta is on a chart.
That's what I mean. So all that stuff, and we need like let,
Chiron is on a
let's
chart.
say how many points of reference are on the chart? Millions.
How many points of reference? I've never. So you have 360 degrees. So at 360
Yeah,
degrees,
but you
it's
just mentioned two of
360
them. What are
separate
they?
points.
What were those things you mentioned?
There's the 9 major planets that we know of,
Okay, there's
right?
9 planets.
Right. And so minus the Earth plus the Sun. So that's considered a planet in this case, even
Okay,
though that it's because it's from the perspective of Earth.
and then what are the
You
other?
have Chiron.
What
You
is that?
have your point of
What's
fortune.
Chiron?
You have the moon. Chiron is an asteroid.
Okay,
It represents the wound that doesn't heal.
so you got all these different points out there, and they're always moving.
Hmm.
Do they repeat a pattern?
After thousands of years.
And I'm only
Never
67.
exactly. I mean, yeah, I mean, they do, but not.
So that's
It takes thousands of years.
so this is where I start losing faith in some of that when it gets too complicated.
Mhm.
How close can you hone in on that person has that personality because Chiron was over here at that specific time when they
Have
were
you ever
born?
heard the story of whenever they put astrology on trial?
No.
It's a real story. I'm not kidding you. It's in the
You tell a
United
story.
States.
It's 5:51.
All right, I will tell the story real
Time.
quick. This is a true story about whenever they actually tried astrology in court. There was a lady who was, I believe it was New York City, and she was an astrologer, and she read charts on a regular basis, and apparently was really damn good because of how this went. So she was doing astrology and everything else. They then tried to try her for being a fraud, saying that astrology isn't real. You can't prove that it's real. Therefore, it's fraud. That's what they were trying to try her for. And it was somebody who, I don't know, was mad about something that she said or something like that. But they put her on trial. So one of the things that she said in trial was, okay, well, if you don't believe that any of it's real, why don't you just test me? Why don't you just try me? Just see if you really think that it's real. So they took several charts and they did them at random and they took away all of the data from the chart. They had the chart, but they erased some of the data on it so that way she didn't know who it belonged to or anything else. And they handed her, like, I think it was like 5 charts. And she was going through them and she picked one that was really interesting to her. And she starts reading about it and she goes, oh yeah, so here's a bunch of things about this person. So they're pretty young still and blah, blah, blah. And she's telling all the story and she looks and finally she goes, oh, this person is going to die or recently died due to water. Looks like they drowned. And she's going through this whole entire thing. Well, unbeknownst to her, the chart that she was reading was actually the son of the judge. That they just, a whole bunch of people just threw chart data out there for them to do, and one of the ones that he used was his son. His son had died a year earlier from drowning in a lake. So literally she called it out. Like she called it out and she was like, yeah, so this happened. And it turned out to be totally true. And that basically caused the judge to like look at it and go, well, I mean, I might not be able to say that astrology is real, but I also can tell you that she's not a fraud. So it was kind of it was a real scenario. It really did happen. They really did put astrology on trial for a while there. And I didn't believe astrology whenever I first started learning about it too, but it works and it is complicated and there is a lot to it and it's very weird how it works. It's none of us understand exactly why it works. Mm-hmm. There's nothing in astrology that says, oh yeah, it works because of this. We don't always understand. It's like any form of divination. Lots of forms of divination work, right? Mm-hmm. This, you can look at it like a form of divination, except that it can be taught. It's not like Edgar Casey going into a trance and, seeing the future, or Nostradamus staring into a black mirror at the bottom of a tray of water and writing down some of the most famous prophetic notes in history. Mm-hmm. So it's totally different. Like they can tell you this equates to this. This equates to this.
Right. Well, I believe that astrology and the zodiac and all that isn't a fraud because the planets, the sun's going to rise tomorrow. Yes. Since I was born, I recall that. Mm-hmm. Happens. It's pretty dependable.
Sure.
What I'm getting at is when it gets really complicated, can the individual, there's so much data there, can they actually tune in on it and find that stuff out?
Somebody who's good can.
Right.
I can't even explain how they do it sometimes.
Like she did with the judge.
Yes.
So that makes sense that way. But when you just go get a reading from someone and they start, I need to know a little more about that person that's doing the reading to believe that they know what the frick they're talking about.
Yeah. And that's the hard thing. Like when you get a reading done, sometimes they can be done extremely poorly and they're just kind of guessing.
Or they're just
and it feels like a cold reading.
Or they're reading it off the little book that came with the deck.
Well, there's no little book that comes with a deck with astrology.
Sometimes there is.
You're thinking of tarot.
Well, tarot too.
But tarot, yeah. A lot of people will read a little book that comes off of the deck.
So maybe it's not a deck, maybe it's charts.
Well, and this is charts. And frankly, even the best of the best of the best of astrologers will go in reference books. And the whole reason why is because it's so complicated. There's so much to remember. Right. There's thousands.
And that's kind of my point, is the worst of the worst of the worst don't.
The worst of the worst of the worst don't know how to parse even the most simple, rudimentary data into something that
But
is
they're still willing to
understandable.
go to a psychic fair and do a reading for 45 bucks.
Yes.
And then put the
That
show
happens
down.
a lot. It's the same thing with energy workers, right?
That's what I mean. They go over to
You have people
Magus.
who are happy to say, I'm an energy worker, and then they go and
They get a book on Reiki.
yeah, they
Oh,
read a
cool.
book on Reiki. They went to somebody who said your channels are open now, and then they go, oh, okay, I can offer Reiki to people now. And then they go and they do it, and that doesn't mean that they know what they're doing and they really truly understand it.
Yes, that's similar with the magic. They
Yeah,
go to the magic store and they buy a couple books, or they get them on eBay or whatever. They're called magic tricks, and then they can do them.
yeah,
But do they know
yeah.
how to use stage presence? Do they know how to entertain the audience? Do they know how to control the audience so that they see certain things? And
Are they good at actually performing the magic itself? Because if you get somebody who's poor at performing it, then it doesn't really look magical.
yeah,
So there's all kinds of things that go into it, but like you said, it really depends. I mean, you go see a magician, it's easy to tell whether they're good or not because did they fool you? Well, if they were able to, if they tricked your eye, if it tricked the eye, if you actually thought the experience was magical, they did their job. Did you feel entertained? That's quality number 2 from a magician, right? It's like number 1 is did you feel like they presented something magically? Number 2 is were you entertained?
well, there's also the element of you do something for somebody and they go, how did you do that?
hmm
So that's more of a puzzle.
Right.
I know that you didn't really do magic. I want to know how you did that. So it's
Sure.
not magic now, it's a puzzle.
Sometimes, but the experience itself would have still been magical at its heart, like the first experience of it. Like for me, astrology is a way for me to it's a shortcut to understanding people. And it works really well when it works. And it's very rare that it doesn't. It's very rare that it does it. And usually, if it doesn't, it's because the person's chart is extremely contradictory and complex. And that does happen. If you
Right.
end up, and that's whenever you have to sit down and it takes you an hour or two to go through somebody's chart in order to actually be able to dictate what it means. And if you're not good at reading a chart and you're just doing like cold reading for 45 bucks to any random person who comes and sits there, that's not always really going to get you a good reading because the person's going to tell you your basics. They're going to say, oh, your sun sign is this, your rising sign is this, your moon is this, and that means this, this, and this. And then they're going to be like, if you want to know more, why don't you come back and see me? But any of that you can get out of a book.
And there's the element of where a person was born. If they were born in a warm climate or a cold climate, that's going to have an effect on how a person develops a personality.
That's not inside a chart. It doesn't tell you that. It
Shouldn't it?
just tells you what their personality is.
Well, I think their personality would be a little bit different if they were in cold weather versus hot weather.
Their chart would be
When
different
they
too
were
if they
born.
were born in somewhere that was cold weather versus hot
This is,
weather.
this is going to have to be continued.
Well, the chart would be different because they're born in a different area of the world. A different area of the world at that same exact time is going to have a different horizon. And basically, if you were to lay on your back, imagine you just gave birth to a baby, and what you see at that moment, looking straight up, what is on the horizon at that given moment, that is your chart. That is exactly your chart from the place you're at on the planet. So if you, because where you're at on the planet, your place is included in the chart. If you don't use that, then it doesn't help you with their chart. Their chart's gonna be wrong. So even if it's a few degrees, that few degrees can make a huge difference. There's one lady that I know who, if she was born 10 minutes later, her moon would be different. If she was born 2 minutes earlier, her rising would be different. So like her chart is very specific to her. In the entire United States, there'd only be 2 people with a very similar chart to her.
I would think everybody's chart's going to be very unique to themselves.
Most of the time, there is some things that are similar. I'll give you an example. So there was a guy I met who was born exactly 22 hours before me, and I looked at his chart and my chart, and we compared notes. He, of course, had a different rising sign and a different moon, because my moon is at 1 degree Aries. So he had a different moon and a different rising sign, but we compared notes on kind of how we experienced life. And it was fun having a conversation to him, because that 22 hours difference, it's a minor difference, but it's a big difference on a chart.
Mm-hmm.
So as we talked about how the charts were interpreted, how his chart would be interpreted versus my chart was interpreted, there were aspects of our personality that were similar. And there were aspects of our personality that were stark differences, and definitely differences in our reality. So for him, it actually indicated that there might be some form of institution, that's some form of jail or something like that. He actually got thrown in the brig because of an incident that ended up happening overseas that actually wasn't him, but part of code of conduct and code of honor is that if it's not something that is horrific or something like that, usually you don't talk, right? That's part of code of honor in the military, and a lot of people behave that way. So he kept his mouth shut. I think he was an idiot for keeping his mouth shut in this particular case, but he had his own reasons for doing it. And he kept his mouth shut, and so he got sent to the brig for 3 years. So that was in his chart, wasn't in my chart. But what was interesting is we both had something that we both had a 12th house moon. So because my moon is in the 12th house, his moon was in the 12th house, but his moon was in Pisces, my moon is in Aries, because he was born before me.
You're speaking a different language I don't understand.
Yeah.
Okay, we're after 6.
Yeah. I like reading charts, though. They're quite fascinating.
This would be interesting to see what the AI does to this topic.
Sure.
When I chop it up and it starts talking about the zodiac.
Oh, I'm sure as soon as I start talking about the zodiac, I'm going to get tons of haters on there who hate it. And then lots of other people are going to be like, well, I'm a Libra and I'm dating a Gemini, and it says that we're not supposed to be very compatible, but, you know, we do just fine together. And I'm like, yeah, but that's not how to read
your voice. What the hell was that?
I don't know. We have all kinds of things just going whack and hitting the building right now.
So we're going to sign this one off. I'll check it out, and I don't know what it's going to say. I had something else I was going to say, and it disappeared when you were doing the squeaky voice.
Oh, that's too bad. Was it be good, be kind, be nice?
Oh, yeah, I can do that. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to close this off. So thanks for watching. Go ahead and comment below. And if this gets chopped up, and then you know how to get a hold of Casey at micoshift.com. And you know how to get a hold of me just by Googling the keyword MagicBrad, the man, the myth, the legend, in my own mind. Okay. Peace, love, happiness. Be good, be kind.